Hey everybody, welcome back to Accounting 1101. I hope you're doing well out there in internet land, wherever you may be looking at the video. Today's video we're going to tackle an intro to internal controls, and I hope from the video today you'll find out and be able to describe and illustrate objectives of internal control. So as part of that, you're going to have to figure out what the heck internal controls even are in a business accounting setting. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little story about the best cook I've ever met. In my younger days, I was fresh out of college and in public accounting working as an auditor. And one of our clients at the firm I worked at was the city of Kingsport, Tennessee. And I was there working on the city of Kingsport, Tennessee audit when I came across a character named Bob Morrell. And Bob was a custodian at City Hall. And Bob would come into the little office where we were working all the time and distract us and give us bootleg CDs and all kinds of stuff. He was just a character. But one of the things that Bob was known for was being a cook. He was a cook in the service. He was actually in the Navy in his younger days. And so there's me working as an auditor, and here's Bob Morrell checking over some of my work there on one of his many visits. But the way I found out that he was a cook is I showed up for work one Friday at the City Hall there, and the people I was working with on the engagement team for the audit said, "Hey, Bob's cooking today. Don't go eat lunch. You're going to eat lunch here." I was like, "Well, okay." And they went downstairs at lunchtime in the basement of City Hall there, and there was Bob cooking up Cuban sandwiches, authentic Cuban sandwiches. And he learned about how to make these when he was in the service. And I was watching him make Cuban sandwiches, and he had this big loaf of bread, and he had butter, and he was slathering up the bread barehanded. And I was starting to think, okay, this guy was probably cleaning toilets like 15 minutes prior to this. I hope he washed his hands, But he's there slathering up the bread. He gets all the ingredients, and then he showed us the secret ingredient to making a great Cuban sandwich. And the secret ingredient is Mojo Jarillo. Mojo Jarillo is a Spanish marinade. You can actually find it at your local grocery store. If you go to Kroger in the Latin foods aisle, you can see Mojo Jarillo. And he put that in there and served up these Cuban sandwiches and ham and cheese and this dressing that he put on it. And they were amazing. And put them in the panini grill and grilled them up. One of the best sandwiches I've ever eaten in my life. And, a few other times he cooked for us. He'd make lasagna. He'd make some desserts. He's just an amazing cook and amazing guy all the way around. And loved our interactions that we had with Bob there. And we gave him the nickname Mojo Bob because of the Mojo dressing that he put on his Cuban sandwiches. And I always told myself, if I ever started a restaurant, first of all, I'd have to learn to cook like Bob. But if I ever started a restaurant, I would call it Mojo Bob's Bar and Grill. And I would serve Bob Morrell's recipes there. And it would be great. It would do all kinds of business because his food was that good. So just thinking about that, Mojo Bob's Bar and Grill, if I was to start that business, and I was an owner and proprietor, I'd have to figure out a few things. This is the big leagues here. We're talking a nice restaurant, good food, you're going to have a lot of customers. I'd have to think about how I can prevent theft. And the business side now, I'm not talking about the food, now I'm putting on my business hat. How can I prevent theft? I got to make sure my employees don't steal from me, and maybe I got to make sure my customers don't steal from me either. I also need to make sure that the accounting is correct. Maybe I get some QuickBooks, maybe I'd hire an accountant. Whatever I did, I'd have to make sure we had procedures and policies in place that would lead to correct accounting. Maybe buy a fancy cash register with a POS system where we could punch in what was ordered, that kind of thing. And then finally, I'd also need to make sure that my business complies with applicable laws. Not only IRS laws, but local health ordinances. I don't want to get shut down because we're not following the health code at Mojo Bob's, and that would kill our reputation quicker than anything. So there's all kinds of different things I've got to think about in terms of the business beyond just cooking up food, like our good friend Bob there. So the answer, how did I do all that? Internal controls. Your book calls internal controls policies and procedures designed to provide reasonable assurance that the assets of the business are safeguarded, that our business information, the accounting is accurate, and that we comply with all the applicable laws and regulations. Now, a couple of things I want to break out there. Reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. Even the best internal controls that I could possibly come up with aren't going to guarantee these three items. No guarantees in life. It's going to provide reasonable assurance that those things will happen, that my assets are safeguarded. Employees aren't going to be walking out the door with cash. Employees aren't going to be walking out the freezer with a side of beef and putting it in their car and going home with it, okay? These policies and procedures are going to help safeguard my assets, the assets of the business. I'm going to make sure that business information is accurate. And again, an internal control might be that every order we make sure gets logged into the computer. It gets logged into the POS and is generated order ticket through there. And then finally, we comply with the laws and regulations. So again, internal controls are the policies and procedures we design as a business to provide reasonable assurance that that stuff happens. If you want a mnemonic, if you like an easy way to kind of remember, internal controls will help the owners keep pace with their business. The P, protect the assets. The A, accurate accounting. C, comply with laws and regulations. And E, efficient operations. Some of you all may have worked in places where we had 10 people doing one job and no people doing another job. That's not efficient. So internal controls are designed to help us do that. So a couple of review questions here that you need to know. What are internal controls designed to do? You might see that on an exam. They're designed to provide reasonable assurance, assets safeguarded, information accurate, complied with laws and regulations. And then finally, why don't internal controls provide absolute assurance? Well, because we're people. You know, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry, as the old literature saying goes. So we are people. If we design a system, inherently a system designed by people that people are interacting in, is going to have flaws in it. Nothing's going to be guaranteed. And me as an owner, I can't be everywhere at once. I can't stand over someone's shoulders the entire time they're working in all the different places in the restaurant and make sure that they don't do anything wrong. That's where internal controls come in, and they help to provide reasonable assurance, not absolute. So, elements of internal control, we're going to talk about that in the next video. Hopefully from our video right here, you've got a better idea of what an internal control is and why they're necessary and what they're designed to do. In our next video, we'll fill in the blanks as to what exactly internal controls are and give you specific examples. Hope to see you back here for that. Take care.